Captain Jake Harrison had been flying freight routes across the Andromeda sector for 12 years, and in all that time, his vessel, the Lone Star, had never once refused fuel. Until today, the refueling station at Kepler 442 was a remote outpost, little more than a cluster of pressurized domes clinging to an airless moon. Jake had stopped here dozens of times before, always without incident. But as the fuel line connected to his ship's reservoir, the system emitted a sharp, angry beep. "Fuel intake rejected," the station attendant's voice crackled over the comm. "Your ship's not accepting the connection, Captain." Jake frowned, staring at the diagnostic panel in his cockpit. Every gauge read normal. The reservoir was nearly empty. He needed this fuel. "Run it again," he ordered. Another beep. Another rejection. "Something's wrong with your intake valve," the attendant said. "You're gonna have to check it manually." Jake sighed and grabbed his helmet. Manual inspections were tedious, especially in zero atmosphere. But he had a delivery deadline on Proxima Station, and he couldn't afford delays. Outside, the moon's surface was a desolate gray expanse beneath a black sky studded with stars. Jake made his way beneath the Lone Star's hull, where the massive fuel reservoir sat like a steel belly. The intake valve looked fine, no visible damage, no ice buildup. He ran a gloved hand along the reservoir's underside, checking for anomalies. That's when he felt it. A seam. Unnaturally smooth. And warm. Jake's pulse quickened. He pulled out his Omni tool and scanned the area. The results made his blood run cold. Biosignatures. Multiple. And they were alive. "Station control," Jake said slowly. "I'm going to need security out here, now." 20 minutes later, Jake stood with Station Chief Elena, Rodriguez, and 2 armed guards as they carefully cut away the false panel beneath the reservoir. What they found made Elena curse in 3 languages. Huddled in a makeshift compartment, wrapped in thermal blankets and breathing through jury-rigged oxygen scrubbers, were 4 Lixari children. Their large, luminescent eyes blinked up at the humans in terror, their pale blue skin trembling. "Stowaways," one guard muttered. "Refugees," Elena corrected sharply. Jake's jaw tightened. The Lixari had been at war with the Krathan Empire for 5 years. Their homeworld was a graveyard now, and the survivors were scattered across the galaxy, desperate, hunted, and often sold into slavery by smugglers who promised them safe passage. Someone had hidden these children on his ship, and his ship had known. "How long have they been here?" Jake asked, kneeling beside the compartment. Elena ran her scanner. "At least 3 days. They're dehydrated, malnourished. Another day, and they'd be dead." Jake stared at the children. The oldest couldn't have been more than 10 in human years. They clutched each other, whispering in their melodic language, probably prayers, or goodbyes. His ship had refused fuel because the weight distribution was off. The Lone Star's I had detected the anomaly and shut down intake to prevent a catastrophic imbalance during flight. It hadn't been a malfunction. It had been protection. "We need to get them to medical," Elena said. "Then we contact the Refugee Coalition." "No," Jake said quietly. Elena turned to him, eyebrows raised. "Excuse me? If we report this, they'll be stuck in processing for months. Maybe years. And the Krathan have spies everywhere, you know that. These kids won't last a week in a refugee camp. What are you suggesting, Captain?" Jake stood, meeting her gaze. "I'm suggesting I finish my route. Proxima Station has a Lixari settlement. I can get them there safely." "That's harboring refugees without documentation," one guard said. "That's a felony." "Then arrest me when I get back," Jake replied. "But I'm not leaving them here." Elena studied him for a long moment. Then she waved the guards back. "I didn't see anything. You stopped for repairs. Your fuel system had a glitch." Jake nodded gratefully. The children were terrified of him at first. Jake didn't speak Lixari, and they didn't speak English, but fear was a universal language. He moved slowly, offered them water and ration bars, and showed them the small cargo hold he'd converted into a makeshift cabin. The youngest, a girl with silver markings on her forehead, watched him with enormous eyes as he set up sleeping mats. "It's okay," he said softly, though he knew she didn't understand. "You're safe now." She reached out and touched his hand. Her skin was cold, but her grip was firm. Then she smiled, a tiny, fragile thing that nearly broke his heart. The flight to Proxima took 4 days. Jake taught the children how to use the ship's water recycler, showed them the stars through the observation port, and even let the oldest boy, who he learned was named Thale, help with minor navigation adjustments. They didn't speak the same language, but they communicated. In gestures, in shared meals, in the quiet moments when trauma gave way to tentative trust. On the final day, as Proxima Station grew large in the viewscreen, Thale approached Jake in the cockpit. He held out something small, a pendant carved from pale stone, etched with symbols Jake didn't recognize. "For you," the boy said in halting English. "Thank you." Jake took the pendant, throat tight. "You're welcome, kid." The Lixari settlement on Proxima welcomed the children with tears and songs. Jake watched from the docking bay as they were swept up by their people, surrounded by warmth and safety for the first time in years. Elena had been right. What he'd done was illegal. But as Jake returned to the Lone Star and felt the ship's engines hum to life beneath him, he knew he'd do it again in a heartbeat. Humans didn't always follow the rules, but they knew when the rules were wrong, and sometimes that made all the difference.